So that is what Nico was doing when he escaped Alexandria. Here on Rich Reviews. Hi there folks, welcome back to Rich Reviews, and I'm still reviewing films, and my latest film for you guys here during this outbreak that we have right now is the Postcard Killers, and this is based and it's co-authored by a book by James Patterson. And here's the thing, I know no author that is more prolific than James Patterson. Unfortunately, his adaptations of his works have not been so great outside of Kiss the Girls. Now, originally, this thing was supposed to be directed by Paul Greengrass, considering that this went through a lengthy development hell process, at least during several other points in time. Nicolas Cage and also Patrick Dempsey were originally considered the role that Jeffrey Dean Morgan took on. Also, originally, Connie Nielsen actually shot her scenes, but then was replaced by Famke Janssen. Personally, I don't think that's a big loss there. And also, the Juno Crush role here was going to be originally either Dakota Johnson or Britt Marling. So basically, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who looks completely and utterly lost to why he's here, basically plays Jacob Cannon, a New York City cop in London because his newlywed daughter and son-in-law were brutally murdered and body parts were obviously taken. And what do you know, basically the cop on this case in London basically tells him, go home. Now, of course, most rational people would actually do that, go about their grief, and wait about for the news that the killer or killers have been caught. As I mentioned, Famke Janssen is, I think, the ex-wife in this thing, and she's practically given nothing to do. And she does something in the last act of the film that I'm like, why are you doing this? You don't really have any obligation to do this. And now, of course, maybe it's me, but I'm just sort of sick of killers using European art as the way to use their crimes. And they leave, obviously, considering that they're postcards, they leave messages on the postcards, and I'm particularly not going to read what they are because, quite frankly, I forgot about them. And obviously, yes, he meets up with another detective in Germany that basically tells him a story about this Germany architecture magnate whose daughter was murdered. And then, of course, that architect magnate went after the killer, killed him. Then several months later, he killed himself. And that's supposed to be a way to show that, oh yes, you're going to go the way of the grave, my friend here. As I said, most people will just go home. Of course, not Jeffrey Dean Morgan, because he's a hard-hitting cop who feels like, I need to solve this case no matter what. Of course, this case leads him to go to Sweden here. He meets the local PDs who are just like, please, stay away from this case. And obviously he meets a local journalist, played by Crush Jimbo. She's more willing to deal with him than the police are. Now, of course, we're eventually led to believe that this one particular couple is doing the killings. But then, of course, a switcheroo happens and we come to reveal, oh yes, these other two people are the killers. And of course, he used modern pop psychology to come to understand why these people are doing what they're doing. And it's not really all that. It's basically standard stuff. If this novel had been written maybe 20, 25 years ago, maybe it would have been shocking. But given today's audience and given what passes for film entertainment these days, it's not really shocking. And you think to yourself, okay, these two killers murdered my daughter and son-in-law, and when the big climax happens, when obviously Jacob confronts these killers, you at least think to yourself, okay, this is going to carry some big emotional weight. But alas, it has the villains basically speaking like a James Bond villain, just rambling off. Of course, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is this hard-hitting cop, but every time anything involves his daughter, he breaks down, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's breaking down is not particularly convincing. So in the end, folks, what I'm going to say about the Postcard Killers, I'm going to be generous because there are probably going to be worse films out there if there are any more films that are going to be released this year. So I'm going to give this a Netflix ranking because this film had my curiosity but not necessarily my attention. So folks, the Postcard Killers, have you seen this? What did you think? Please put everything in the comment box below here, folks. Have you read James Patterson's novels? As always, folks, like, comment, subscribe, and enrich yourself with knowledge. I'm Michael Richard Reviews 2. I'll see you next time, folks. Yes, hooray.